And good evening, everybody. Welcome to an all-new episode of Holotheatre. As always, I am Dan Tartaglia, also known as D Tartag1. Joining me tonight from the great state of Washington, your three-time, what is some little tournament winner, Captain Redbeard and Hall of Famer himself, Mr. Joe Olson. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm tired. I got home from Europe last night about midnight and still a bit jet lagged, but happy to be here.
A little. I mean, so from what I understand, you and your crew went over a few days before, correct?
Yeah, I took the trip with my girlfriend Jacqueline, and we left on September 6th, I think. It was about a 3 week trip.
Wow, that's quite a trip. And excuse me. So, did you, while you were over there, did you take all your Star Wars cards over for like 3 weeks?
No, I very, very narrowly defined what I was gonna bring and brought just that, the minimum amount, and then we sort of had stuff spread between our team in terms of extra things.
So you follow the bring one bag just for Star Wars, bring one bag for clothes rule. I guess
No,
that
I
was
just had one backpack total, but my Star Wars cards were one of the uh, deck boxes, the PC deck boxes, like the extra
okay.
large deck boxes, and then one of the OTSD. So I was able to fit everything in
That's
that
impressive.
combined, and then the rest was clothes and yeah.
I was gonna say like I know someone. I'm not gonna say who, uh, but someone from the great state of Texas unfortunately had to jettison clothes to bring back some of the stuff that he got from Worlds. So did you have to do that at all?
No, I left space in my bag. I've been to some Europe tournaments before and knew of their generosity. So I went prepared, and all the places in all our different Airbnbs had washer dryers. So I think I did
Okay.
laundry like 3 or 4 times in the 3 weeks. Basically every 4 or 5 days I'd do a load of laundry. So I didn't have to bring, I only had to bring 3 or 4 outfits and just do a lot of laundry.
So, besides, like, we'll get to the Star Wars portion of the interview here in a second. So, again, first of all, big congratulations. This was your third time World Championship. How does that feel in and of itself to be in that group of three-time World Champion now?
It's good. I still, even with 3 world titles, I still have a little bit of imposter syndrome, because there was so many years I was a scrub, just like years and years of attending worlds in the mid 2000s. I went to five, six, seven, eight, and I would finish like 4-4, 3-5. Like it wasn't sometimes 5-3, but like I was a scrub for years, and so. But even then, the players who have won worlds multiple times, I was thinking about this the other day of like, all right, there's 6 of us who have won worlds multiple times. So
Yes.
Kevin Shannon twice,
Mm-hmm.
Emil twice, Desai 3 times, Bastion 3 times, myself 3 times, and Chu twice. So there's 6 of us, and I was trying to think, all right, who are the top 5 players who have won worlds twice? And what that means is you've got to leave one of those names out, right? And I'm like, well, it can't be Shannon. He's amazing. I'm like, it can't be Chu. He's
No.
possibly the goat. It can't be Bastion. It can't be Desai with his 3. Emil, I think, is just a better player than me. It can't be Emil. I was like, I think I have to put myself at number 6 on that list, which says more about those other players than it does me, I think, because I do recognize I'm a strong player. I have good results, but it feels good to be in a group like that because all of those names are just like incredible players.
So, okay, quick question then. Let's elaborate on that. So, you've said there's 6 players who've won Worlds twice, but there's only 3 of you who've won it 3 times now. Are,
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
Once it's true, but I think once you're at that level, any of those players are live to win. I
true.
beat Immel in the finals, but had it gone another way, he would be a 3 time champ. I think if Desai showed up, he very well would have been live to win a third time.
Mm-hmm.
Bastion's way out of practice. He hasn't played basically in 2 years. So he didn't have great results, but if he practiced even a tiny amount, choose always. I think if Shannon hadn't played for what was it, 5 years, between 6 years between 2015 and he showed up to U.S. Nationals in 2021 and just top eighted the thing. I mean,
true.
And yeah, so once you get to that sort of level, that sort of tier, at that point you're going to be playing well. You're going to be locked in, and then it's like, does it bounce your way? Do you get those lucky draws? Do you get, I think back to a moment. I read 2 tournament reports today, one by Crazy Carl and one by Eric George Ice Planes, both fantastic tournament reports. You should read them if you haven't. And one of them was talking about some destiny draw and the luck not going their way or whatever, and it immediately made me think of a game against JNAP in the semifinals of Worlds 2021 where he was Black Sun and I was Quaimuning, and he got a huge beatdown on me. And I flipped a lucky 7 off the top, and so I only had to peel like 5 or something. Instead, if I flip a 1, I'm instead peeling 11, and the whole I probably don't win that Worlds if I don't draw that 7 there. And so, a lot of things you have to play well. A lot of things have to go your way. And I think when you're talking about those sort of players, it's almost like if Desai was there in the top 8, and if Chu or Shannon was there and I was there, I would say any of us are live to make it. And beyond that, it's just like, all right, whose day is it going to be, basically?
Fair. Okay. I mean, I'm not like trying to persuade you to give us a top 6.
Well, and the funny thing is, I don't even know that those are the top 6 of all time. Those are just the 6 people who've won Worlds twice. There's some other very good players who only won once or never even won. So, it's fun to think about. But yeah, I was thinking about that the other day of like the people who've won multiple times, and I was like, I don't know how I could pick any of them to put 6th on that list. I think it would probably be me. If I'm picking, I recognize other people, especially ones newer to the game who have seen my sort of run post reset, would say, oh no, Joe should be in that top 5 there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of good players.
I mean, yeah, the players that were at, like you said, the players who have gone through, played multiple top 8s, multiple world championships. It's just, it is a little staggering to see it all. So, but, I mean, yeah, but 3-time world champ, you're already a Hall of Famer, you've won multiple other tournaments, you've got to be up there in the pantheon of top players, especially now. The game, I feel like the game has gotten harder throughout the years as we've progressed in some aspects.
Yeah, in some ways, I think. It's like any sport. It's hard to compare eras, So I don't know how to succinctly describe that, but yeah, it's hard to compare now to then, but it's definitely a very difficult game still, and everyone sort of has kicked up the level of play.
So, looking back at I know that you wrote a tournament report. You went really in depth onto the trip, the event, everything as a whole. What would you say was one moment that really stood out to you? I would say just from the weekend.
Yeah, the trivia night was just so fun. Kevin is just amazing and generous, and the prizes were great, but also just the silliness, the joy everyone was experiencing of playing this game, trying to remember, what the heck is the forfeit on this random scrub alien? Is that alien is that special edition? No, that's Jabba's Palace. And just laughing with everyone as you're trying to figure this out. And it was just when you're playing Star Wars the next day, there's highs and lows, but there was no lows during that. It was just pure fun for hours.
And it kind of helped that you guys had Eric and Hayes on your team, who are like,
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
they've kind of studied Star Wars.
It's fun to watch people who are just like amazing at something, and it was fun for me to just watch them just be like boom 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 boom, got this, and Hayes was like done, and he puts his thing on his head, his card on the head for Kevin or Kessling to collect, and it was fun to watch them and try and chime in, and yeah, it was a good time.
Apparently, Tommy Lodgeporg decided to collect some of the planets ones and put them above his bed afterwards on Saturday.
Nice. My kids have some of those like little fake glow in the dark stars on their ceiling. I imagine it's something like that where you've got like Yavin 4 and Clactor 7 just above your bed, like you're in outer space.
So so let's get into it. So you start off touring Europe with your team. For those who haven't done the whole experience of going over to Europe, doing the tour, what were some of the highlights of that? Like, just to give us perspective of somebody who hasn't been over to Europe yet.
Sure. Well, so on the way, we did a stopover in Iceland for 3 days, and that was beautiful and amazing. So that sort of checked the box of like, all right, see something cool new on my bucket list. And then we went over to Poland and got to hang out with Zemek, Cryptophis on Jump, and got to meet his family, and his kids are like adorable. His son plays Star Wars Unlimited, and so he like played a game against Lee, and
nice.
We were just having fun hanging out. We watched like American football. He is a Giants fan, so we watched them, and we watched the Seahawks were playing the Patriots, which is Hayes' team and my team. So we all just hung out. We had snacks. We watched football. We like chatted with his wife, and we just like chilled at his house. And it was nice to get to spend in-person time with someone who I'd met him a couple times at previous like Euro championships, but that was like briefly and at a tournament. And most of the other team hadn't met him. And so just getting to spend quality time with someone that you mostly know from online is a lot of fun. And that's really the case with like the whole community, because when you go over there, you're going to meet all these people that you've played online a bunch, but you've never had the chance to meet them before. And so getting to meet, Kuhn or Cedric or Kevin or Menzel or any of these people who like you've played against, a little bit of, maybe you've seen them on a Holotheatre or whatever, but actually getting to meet them and spend time with them is a lot of fun.
So yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like it's a great event. Like I know Hayes was talking a little bit about that, and how I like how we actually know how to say Zemek's name now.
Yes.
That's finally getting an idea of like how to say people's names, even though we've been saying them for a while now. It is really nice. So, and I know a lot of people were bummed out that Zemek wasn't able to show up at Worlds, but hey, life unfortunately sometimes happens.
Yeah.
So let's get into how you prepped for the event. So we know that you were at you went to Continentals, you went to Indianapolis. How did you prepare for Worlds, being that the meta kind of was the same, especially since like from Continentals forward?
Yeah. The night before Continentals, we had been bouncing around a bunch of different light sides and dark sides, both sides. And dark kept running into a problem where we're like, how does this beat Hitco? And then we'd be on a different deck, we'd be like, how does this beat Hitco? And over and over we kept saying like, oh man, but Hitco's a tough match. We'd be like Eops, but we'd be like, but Hitco's a tough match. We'd be like Scum, and we'd be like, but Hitco's a tough match. And at some point I was like, if Hitco is like just a tough match for everything, why aren't we playing it? Why it seems like the best deck. We should just play the best deck. Why are we not playing Hitco? So like we moved on to Hitco, and Desert Landing Site, it changed. It was errata. Now it's Rothsmall is the current incarnation of it. was just a flexible platform for mains, basically, that activates a lot and was, like I said, sort of the next iteration of what used to be Desert Landing Site, slip sliding away. A year ago, Hayes won Worlds with that, and he won Indoor with that. It was errated, and now it became a Rod Small deck. And so I think that was just a flexible platform. So I played both of those at Continentals and went 6-2 and really liked both of them. So then I played them in the OCS that month and went 10-1, and I was like, okay, these are legitimate. They're good decks. I'm just gonna take them for day one, and I think I can 6-2 with them, and then figure out day two from there.
Okay. So, like, I know that you guys were been big on hit, like you said, with Hitco. What made like Eric, for example, play Quiet Mind Colony over Hitco? Was it just a choice of a deck, or?
Yeah, Eric and Hayes both played QMC. Hitco is I would, and I may be wrong here, but I don't think it's really Eric's style. Hayes, I think, would be a little more comfortable with it than Eric. He would have been fine with it, but I think Hayes just felt very confident in his QMC abilities. Both of them, I think, knew that they could 3-1 or better with QMC, and combined they went 7-1 with it. So QMC is just has a lot of flexible lines. It's really good in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, and so I think they didn't even want to risk any variance or bad matchups or whatever. They just felt comfortable, like, we can win whatever with QMC.
That's fair. And like you said, like, I know all your team, what were you expecting to see? Like, I know you said Hitco was probably the best deck. You're expecting that. Obviously, you were expecting the decks that you guys brought. But what else were you guys expecting to see in the meta?
Hitco, Rod Small, Walkers, some kind of Rots Vader maybe. For light besides Hitco, I thought we'd see maybe a little bit more agents in the court that we did not see a build of. Really, did anyone play it? I don't know what the stats on that were, but
the agent in the court? I don't think so.
We did think there would be some of that floating around, because I think there's some interesting agents in the court builds right now. We kind of decided it seemed like a little bit worse QMC, so we didn't play it, but we thought some people might have that. We thought My Kind of Scum would be popular. Eric switched to it very last minute. It sort of came up on our radar like the last week and that was my one loss in the OCS, was to Charlie's My Kind of Scum.
I was gonna say, like, was it, what kind of My Kind of Scum was it that you lost?
It was a Thok and Thug. The same type of one Beefred has been running since he ran it at both Indy and Continentals, and so it's been around for like 6 months. But we had been a little bit checked out and not doing our due diligence, and then I lost to Charlie, and I sent the replay to everyone. I was like, I think this is a legit deck, and then I don't know, a few weeks later, about a week before the event, Eric was talking about it and decided to switch to it. And at that point, I was already leaving and didn't have time to build a new deck or anything. And I think it's an interesting deck. I actually think it's one of the strongest dark decks.
Really?
Yeah. So we were expecting to see that. But yeah, I think the meta didn't really, coming out of it, or even on day one, looking at when they posted the archetypes, there wasn't really any surprises there. It was sort of, we had everything released. I guess I was a little surprised there was no Prophet, because I thought with Greg getting second at Continentals with Prophet, I thought we might see a little bit, and there wasn't any. But otherwise, just, Continentals sort of defined the meta, and then it didn't really change much for Worlds.
Yeah, I was going to say, the fact that what kind of surprised me on the aspect was there was 4 Diplos. Like, I know Diplo received that helper, but still 4 people playing Diplo.
Yeah,
On
that's
top of
surprising.
that, like there was 3 Walkers deck plus the 1 Hoth CRV deck, and 2 of them, what was it? 2 made top 8. So
Hmm.
Walkers had a good day, but
Yeah. I thought we'd see a lot of walkers because Gogolin got first on day one at Nationals with the walkers build, and so I thought, and before that, I think it was Jonas who had done well with the
mhm.
walkers at the European Championship, and so I thought some people would climb onto that. Walkers is always it's not too difficult of a deck to play. It's like you put veers on a walker and do damage, and it's hard for them to attack you. So it's kind
Yeah.
of um, a popular, especially it can fare well against main. So people who just hate lightsabers, a lot of times will gravitate towards walkers.
That's fair. So what I again and I know that you've done your tournament report, and for those who are watching, go read it. Like Joe has put in so much time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears, essentially writing that report. Like I would, you could spend probably an hour just reading that report and getting learning something about Star Wars because, like I said, it was a really well written report. It hit almost every mark that you would want to hit on a report. But let's get into some of the games that you played. So, what's your like for what did you guys do Friday? Was it just like theory crafting, or were you set completely on decks?
Um, I wasn't totally set. I was still waffling a little bit, but I was thinking we were gonna play games, and then I didn't end up playing any. I ended up going out with Jacqueline and having like a picnic at the park, and Eric played some games with Lee and Barry. I think Hayes played a game.
Mm-hmm.
So people played a few games, and yeah, we hung out and talked. Everyone was kind of set on our list, so we went over and said hi to everyone before the team tournament, and then headed back and had dinner, finalized list.
I was gonna say, and I noticed that you guys don't normally play in the team tournament. Like,
Uh,
is
for me, for me, 8 hours or 8 games of Star Wars on Saturday is like enough. Star Wars, like if I played in the team tournament and then had to do a whole day on Saturday, I would just be burned out even earlier on Saturday, and
well,
someone like Timo, who's like
oh
he can do team tournament and then 8 games on Saturday, and then he's like, I'm ready for the consolation or top 8 or whatever.
yeah.
Like more games, and I'm just like, oh, I'm that's too much for me. So yeah, I haven't done a team tournament in a
I
long
mean,
time, just
I
because.
I understand this, but the fact that the team tournament was it was interesting because again it was you had to have a European partner if you're American or vice versa. Did that aspect intrigue you at all?
I didn't find out about that until later when they were already pairing everybody and stuff. I do think that is very cool, and I like that they did that. Yeah, yeah, I think that's awesome.
So okay, so did you get a good night's sleep Friday into Saturday?
Um, I think I got 6 hours or something. I think Friday night was pretty solid. The next night was very short, but that night I think I got decent sleep.
So you wake up Saturday, you get ready, and you sit down. What was going through your mind at the start of the event?
I got paired up with Beef Red again.
Yep,
As I mentioned
that's
in the
why I asked.
report, I faced him game one at indoor a year ago. I faced him game one at Indianapolis. I faced him game one at Continentals in New Jersey, and now I faced him game one again. 4 of the last 5 majors, we've played each other game one, which is just ridiculous. And yeah, it was a matchup, the exact same matchup as at Continentals, and it went the same way. I actually had a chance. I realized I forgot a detail in the tournament report, but I had a chance towards the end of the game where I knew he was relying on Blastador Kid for battle evasion, and he only had one saved. And I
Oh,
got first strike. He had just kicked me out of space the turn before, so my lines were either try and go back to space or go beat him down. And I was like,
mm-hmm.
he's only got one force. Here's my opportunity to just like clean win this game. And so I deploy a bunch of guys, and then I deploy first strike, and he goes, they're tracking us, and I was just like, oh man. So then he could pay for first strike plus pay the one to blast Blastador kid, and so then I wasn't in space. So then he gets around a free trades, and then that just like tipped it over. And so it was, yeah, him having that they're tracking us to counter the first strike was what sealed the win for him. And I realized I forgot to put that in the tournament report, but that was a nice play by him. And then I did a similar thing to Eric in the quarterfinals later on.
They're tracking us as probably the card of the weekend.
It's good, yeah. And yeah, and like I said, I did the same thing to Eric later when I had Dooku all by himself and he deployed a bunch of aliens on Cloud City to beat him up, and I only had one saved. And then I uploaded Force Push and activated one with Dark Time and Force pushed out of the battle. So yeah, those sneaky like just activate one when your opponent's not expecting it can be really strong.
So again, like you said, you had the honor of playing B-Fred first round. Went the way it went before. How were you feeling after that? Again, because it's B-Fred. Like, was he?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, you don't want to start 0-1, obviously, because you only get 2 losses if you want to top 8, and that means you have to finish the day 6-1. You know, it makes the climb a little bit steeper. But there's been plenty of times where that's happened. I think, at Continentals itself, I lost game 1 to B-Fred, and then ended up 6-2 and made the top 8. And I want to say there was a U.S. Nationals where I started 0-2 and then backdoored, ripped off 6 in a row and made the top 8 and then won that event. I think maybe it wasn't Nationals. I don't know. I'm pretty sure there was an event where I went 0-2 into 6-2. So I wasn't really too down after losing to B-Fred because I knew there's still a lot of day left.
So we get into after round 4, you're sitting at 3-1. Yep. Round 5, you go and play against, I think it was Robbie's map. And Robbie was playing map because, one, he knew it, and I think he said that it was like it had a decent matchup against Hitko. I think that game was a big turning point for you just because, again, just by looking at it really quick, did it seem like a lot of things were going right for you in that game, or?
Yeah, that's one that really can go either way. And my very first drain on turn 2 or so, he top decks Kylo's Saber, and Kylo without the Saber is just, a lot less of a threat, and he can't drain as much, and so it was a big, and it was the first card he top decked, and then he top decked a second one so that it was buried, so I knew he couldn't no escape it, and so that was a huge sigh of relief. And then just the way the game flowed, I was able to get damage in, and then I got Jin down for a while to block some of his, and then I was able to get over to my 2/2, and I felt pretty in control. And yeah, I was pretty nervous when he flipped over map. So I was very happy that it sort of went my way. Yeah.
So you end up winning that one, and then going into round 6, you won that against Jonas. So you're sitting in a really good position going into Game 7. Game 7, you take your dark side, which again is Rot Small, against Emil. What was going through your mind at the top table, round 7?
I had lost almost essentially this matchup to him a year ago. I traveled on Tommy Airlines to the European Championship a year ago, and I bubbled. I got 9th because game 8, Emil and I were both 5-2, and it was winning in, and he beat me in this match. His old allies, I was, at the time it was Maul's Landing Site SSA, and now it's Rot's Maul, but very similar deck. And it was not close. And this time I took some different lines. The build's a little bit different. But I ended up making a mistake and not leaving a force for draw their fire. So he got in a beat down for like, I don't know, 8 or something, and then I got in a counter beat the next turn for like 11, and so it was just like um, not a typical game against him because usually it's very control and drain and grind, and but we were just kind of throwing beatdowns back and forth, and he managed to edge me out by 8, and or not by 8, by 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it was a disappointing outcome. I felt happy that it was a lot closer this time because I was already thinking to the next day, and I still needed to win my last one,
Mm-hmm.
but I was thinking, okay, that actually went a lot better than I thought. That does open up possibilities of um, playing this tomorrow into Immel's Old Allies, tweaking some things to make it even better against Old Allies.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't rule out this deck in the way I thought. So now I have other pivots besides the indoor offs that I brought. Now maybe tweaking this deck is a viable possibility. So I was kind of happy with a close game.
Okay. So again, you're sitting at 5-2 at this point. You go back to the light side for game 8, and you find out your opponent is your teammate Eric Hunter. And I think at that point Eric was 6-1.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of know the lines. What happened in that game?
That was it. It was almost I mix up that game and game 1 the next day because they were the same matchup, my Heko versus my kind of scum, and they went very similarly where I just like drew great characters and I got my he starts no bargain to make all my rebels +2, which is basically everyone in the deck. Luke's always 6 because of like my father, and Yoda's a 4, but every other character in the deck is a rebel. So they're all deploy +2, which is very painful. But I got Oni Ta, which says your deploy cost can't be modified.
Oh yeah.
Very early both games, and so I was able to put that to the audience chamber, and then everyone could play at cost. And yeah, I was basically able to take the audience chamber from in both games. The one on Friday, game 8, I got in a huge beatdown because I had I think both Clash and Sorry, or no, that was the next day I had Clash and Sorry. I don't know, I had a bunch of stuff to basically like kill all his aliens and make him peel 10 on his second turn. And yeah, so he scooped that one.
Yeah.
After that, but yeah, and that felt really good because I was like, I was feeling fine heading into game 8, and then I got paired against some of my kind of scum that started no bargain, and I was really like, oh man, like this can be a really tough match. Like if I get a bad draw, he just establishes at the audience chamber, like I might just be out of the tournament now, take my 3rd loss. And then, I just drew everything I needed, and that was very fortunate.
So now I got to ask, was it discussed before? Like, were there any scooping, anything considered going into game 8 once you find out that your opponent was Eric?
Yeah, I mean, normally, yes. I think if a lot of times there is, if your teammate needs to win and you're already in, you would absolutely consider scooping to them. Eric, I wasn't sure that he was in. He wasn't. He wanted to play it. He sat there. He actually sat there for like probably 2 or 3 minutes after the clock started. After Tomas was like, "All right, everyone, start your game," and Emil and Timo is sitting to one side of us, and they're playing a game, and Patrick and I don't remember who he was playing was sitting to the other side of us. And they started playing, and Eric's just like, he was not feeling well. So I was surprised he wanted to play at all instead of just being like, I concede, I need to go to the hotel or the Airbnb and just like rest. Because he had thrown up earlier in the day. He was just like, he got the flu that everybody had. And so he sat there for like 2 or 3 minutes being like, do I want to play or do I want to concede? And to the point where Patrick looked over, he's like, is everything all right? And I was like, yeah, he's just thinking. So, but he was like, no, I want to play it. So he pulled out and we played it out. But he did consider it, and mostly he considered it because of how unwell he was feeling.
Yeah, that was something that came up over the weekend. Like, what do we know? Like how Eric is doing now? Is he? Hopefully,
I think he's all better now. last I heard was like 3 or 4 days ago, and he said he was feeling a lot better. So I would imagine by now he's
That's good.
pretty good. I haven't heard otherwise yet.
So we see this top eight, and there's three members of the team making it. And what it said, you think? I think it was what you said. Lee was the only one from the team who didn't make it. So you guys got to feel good about that. Now, knowing that Hayes is in your portion of the bracket, what was your guys' thoughts Saturday night in preparation?
We don't tech for teammates. I know other people will, do that, or will be like, want to make sure they win or whatever. We're basically like, we're going to build our decks to beat everybody else, and if they end up with a bad matchup against each other, oh well. Like, eventually we'll have to play each other, most likely, but we're just going to play to beat what we expect the rest of the field was. So it didn't really come into consideration if Hayes had been in the top half of the bracket or bottom half with me or whatever. It's just, what do we need to do to be able to beat Jonas, to be able to beat Emil? Who else is in the top 8? What do we expect? Timo, we're expecting him to stay on Thrawn and 0 Hour. Do we have lines for that? That sort of thing. So that was all part of the discussion, basically.
So then you find out your first opponent, the top 8, is the man who you just beat in round 8, Eric. So you sit down, you know what he's playing, you know what you're playing. How do those games go? Because I know they're on stream, and again, you covered them, but what was your mindset?
So he was the higher seed, so he chose to start with Dark. And essentially, I think the reasoning is like I don't know what his reasoning was. But in my mind, I think I would have chosen the same. And the reason being, either light side gets just a nuts draw against you, and then that, and you have to deal with that, or they don't, and you can get a big win in game 1 and then move on to game 2 and try and get them down. And so versus if you do it the other way and you have to grind the whole game and that sort of thing, and then light just gets a nuts draw, there's nothing you can do, or they don't, and then you end up winning by a bunch, and then it's like, why did I waste all that mental energy on game 1 when I could have just blown them out? And so I think he was just, starting no bargain, and just hope that I don't draw insanely good, which I did.
Yeah, and I noticed in the decks that you switched over. So from your day 1 list, you played Twilight as Upon Me. To your day 2, you switched over to Walkling. Why that change?
Walkling. So Twilight has the docking bays that you can pull, but based on the range of stuff I was expecting, I was thinking I don't put anyone on playing Hunt Down. And Hunt Down's really the matchup you want those extra 1-0s for. Other than that, like, my kind of scum's going to give you, I think, 4 to 5 icons with Lower Passages, Jabba's Palace, Desert, Audience Chamber, and Nal Hutta. If they get all that out, they're giving you 5. Black Sun's giving you at least 3 from their sites, maybe 1 once they get up to the system, so 3 to 4. So I was figuring most decks are giving you multiple force, and I didn't really need the extra force, but what I did want is Walkling's ability to retrieve the saber once per game if needed. Not just a saber, whatever, but and also a retrieve is randomly good in match play just because it's an extra diff, and that can make all the difference. I liked that it could grab meditation or Unita for me if needed. If I top deck a key card on their turn, I can just pay 3 and grab it into hand by grabbing Unita. And it gave me 2 extra deck slots. By switching Twilight to Walkling, I could then add in some other tech cards that I wanted.
That's fair. So yeah, I noticed, like, looking at your list, that was the big change, besides the fact that you went from 2 Yodas to 3. Again, why that? Why that change?
So once you take out the extra docking bays, having Yoda is good because it's an extra icon. And throwing him down to indoor early is good because then he takes away 1 icon from them, and then he adds his 1 to you, so he's almost like a Twix. I was also looking at adding in Gift of the Mentor, but nobody I had any copies, but I liked the idea of Luke with either Obi and or Yoda clearing out a bunch of stuff. But just an extra body that, and also I was running senses, and so having and drawing a Jedi Luke when Jedi Luke is out to fail a sense draw is a bummer. But if you have Yoda out, then you make it, and so having an extra Yoda for that purpose was good too.
That's fair. And then, like you said, for your dark side, you went from Rotsmal to Eops, and why this Eops? The Eops seems a little interesting to those who look at it just from afar.
Yeah, Indoor Ops has a lot of flexibility. I think there's a number of different ways you can take it, and one of the more fun ways to me is like double Dooku, triple Force Lightning, and I know that is a build that Matt Sokol likes a lot, and I think it was all about what we anticipated for day 2, and Force Lightning is like it's good, but it's also counterable, and it's less good the more guys they have. So if they're Hitco, and they've got like Luke and a guy, and you Force Lightning their Luke, and they just have one dude, then you're happy to beat them up. But if they're old allies and they've got, Dash and Rogue 12 with Poe on board and Leia outside and Lor San Tekka outside and, Solo, and you're like, all right, I zap Leia, and it's like, cool, you got rid of Leia, and that's really good for you, but like they still have this huge stack of guys. It loses a lot of value. And so, and we also figured people are probably going to have to give us credit for Force Lightning and play around it at least. Same with Maul Strikes. The build ended up with no Maul Strikes. I definitely like some builds having multiple Maul Strikes. It's another card people are going to have to play around. And then when you do splash it into the deck, you can. It's almost like playing poker where you have to mix up your play sometimes. You have to, sometimes you play more aggressive, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you save one and bluff a barrier, and sometimes you save one and you have the barrier, and you can't do it the same every time, or you become too predictable.
That's fair. So again, you play Eric in round 1, you get by Eric, and then your round 2 opponent is your other teammate, Hayes. What was your mind going, what was going through your mind in that moment when you find out that you have to play Hayes for the semifinals?
So Hayes and I were on the same dark deck, which is Indoor Ops. And so then the question just becomes my light side, which was Hitco against Indoor Ops, versus his light side of QMC versus Indoor Ops. Indoor Ops matches up better against QMC than it does Hitco. So I felt pretty confident going into it. And yeah, I mean, it played out as sort of as expected, try and get in a big beatdown with Hitco and then just kind of grinding him down versus the QMC.
Okay. And then in the finals against Emil, Emil's the higher seed again. So what did he decide to go with first?
He chose his Watcher Step, and he did sort of the opposite of what I was talking about with Eric, where I think he knew that the Hitco would be his worst of the 2 matchups. So he wanted to start with the win, see how much he could win by, and then try and get that down with Black Sun. Black Sun can grind. It can be like Shadows ping. It can, he's got Mitt in there, so he can get some Mitt pings in and just drain one at the system. And I think he was hoping to get a decent-sized win with Watch Your Step and then try and grind me down with Black Sun.
So how did that game go? Just for...
Yeah, my plan was sort of the opposite of like, I'm going to grind him down with Indoor Ops and then just try and get some big beats in with Hitco. And so I played it very passively. Other than one time where I initiated a battle at a docking bay and got fallen portaled, I initiated very few battles. There was a lot of times where we sort of just stared at each other at the cantina. I had a choke Vader at one point, and I was like, I can go attack and try and choke and stuff, but it just, I was just trying to get damage in. So I was draining. I had Black Sun Fleet out, so I was able to consolidate my ships and then move over and drain 2 and reconsolidate and do that whole dance and try and get down to my indoor forest sites for a couple turns and drain 2. And he'd try and knock my guys off that. But we were just like trading drains, and I was pretty content to. I don't think we ever had a single space battle, which is, kind of funny for 2 fairly space-oriented decks. But we just sort of danced around. I let him drain 2, and then I drained 2, and we just kind of went back and forth. And he finally established Tatooine Celebration. Okay. We were both around 7 life force, and so at that point I just drew up, and he got a win by 7. But we were almost to time at that point. We were under 5 minutes. I didn't want to time out and have him win 8 to my 4 and only get a win by 4 when he was clearly like, if we had unlimited time, he probably wins by right around 7, right where he was at.
Yeah.
He was at 7 with 2 in hand, and he was negating all my damage at that point, and I was like, I'm not going to time it out. So I'll draw up here, and he won't be able to get his last 2 cards from hand, and
honestly, like, coming from a gameplay perspective, I think that was a classy move on your part, giving your opponent, who kind of a little bit of an advantage if you think about it, like going forward. But at the same time, you realize that you're in a position where you are. He's in a position that he should win by so much if time was going forward. So I mean, I don't ever want time to be a factor in a game. And it was, and he had the game locked up at that point. So there was no reason for me to like stall and I get 3 more damage in, and then he retrieves 3, and then maybe I can, it's like maybe get him. It was like he's got it locked up. Let's move on to game 2. So game 2, I hear, was where the real fireworks actually occurred. From what I hear, you had what's the poker term, the nuts hand. So what was in your hand, and what happened that made it so good?
I had like Luke, Yoda's hut, control tunnel, run Luke run, and like I don't remember, another card or 2, and so I was basically able to turn 1, come down, deploy Yoda's hut, and come down with Luke on his Shizor Vigo, and he played Shizor's Bounty, and I could cancel it with the control tunnel, which was a card I just added in that morning. So that morning, I added in control tunnel, anticipating Black Sun, and a second run Luke run for the same reason, and both of those cards were in opening hand and were huge. So I control tunnel the Shizor's Bounty, and then I battle and I swing at Shizor and draw 1/1 and miss. And then I add an Attrition Destiny with Anakin Skywalker V. Oh, that was one of the other cards in my hand. Add an Attrition Destiny, and then I draw a 4 for Battle Destiny, which becomes a 5 with like my father, and then another 1. So it was only 6 total attrition, which the Vigo covers. I actually would have been better canceling the Vigo's game text with Anakin Skywalker V to cancel its attrition, or its forfeit +2, and that way when I drew the 4 and it becomes a 5, he would have had to lose Shizor instead.
Hindsight. Yeah, but I was going to say, how often does that happen where you draw 3
You would never
once?
be like, I'm going to cancel its forfeit +2 instead of adding an Attrition Destiny. So I drew 1/1/4, so he only loses a Vigo, and we tie in power, so I don't even stack a card. So that was like a pretty devastating turn 1, but my hand was so good still that he deploys Emperor and moves Shizor over, and then I'm able to go Yoda, run Luke run, hit Shizor, outpower him by enough. He stacks a card, and he's had to like either peel 5 or lose Emperor, and he decides to lose Emperor. So by this point, he's only lost Vigo, Shizor, Emperor, but I'm sitting with Luke, Saber, Yoda, and I get to draw a couple cards in hand. I draw it back up to 8, I think. And so I'm sitting with Luke, Saber, Yoda, and he has nothing on the board. And that, he had also deployed a U3PO, but then he didn't have the force to move it over, because he shadow drew his card that he wiped instead of moving U3PO. But Corrin was one of the other cards in my hand, and so it was just I had everything, and he tried to go over to my indoor site. But not, he wasn't able to put together much. And then he got up to space, and I had my ship, and I had Chewie and Lando, and was able to shuttle up 4 and a new 3PO, and basically I was winning in space. I was draining for like 4 on the ground. And then later I just got in a clash beatdown that he ended up just scooping after that. So yeah, it was one of those things where it was like I was saying earlier, with once you have those good players, it sort of comes down to like, all right, whose day is it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you had, like, as soon as you had your opening hand, you saw that and you was like, oh, today's my day.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I didn't have any nerves the whole tournament until like right before the finals. I started to get a little bit of that anxious in my stomach, and then I saw my opening hand. I was like, okay, cool, like that. I'm good.
So, again, like, it had to feel good winning in Europe. Because I
Yeah,
want to say this is the first time an American has won in Germany.
yeah. Or outside the U.S. because
Yeah.
Emil won the um, first Worlds in Europe, and he won the one that was up in Canada
Yep.
in 2014, and then Bastion won the Europe one in 2019. So all three outside the U.S. Were Emil, and Bastion. Yeah, it felt good, mainly just beating Emil, and a lot of it was not due to me, but was just due to that opening hand and luck. But
Mm-hmm.
Emil is just a very very tough opponent, and so whenever you can beat someone who's very good, it's a good feeling.
Oh, I can imagine. So, how was the rest of your trip? Like,
It was good. We went to Romania. We went to Bucharest and did a tour of Transylvania, Dracula's castle, and everything. That was a lot of fun. Spent hours typing up a tournament report with my thumbs on my phone. Yeah, it was a great trip.
so,
But before, let me pause there because let's keep talking about the weekend. Let's
okay,
talk
sure.
about your weekend at Worlds, and specifically, besides your trip, let's focus on your top 8 result.
Uh, I went 6-2 and made a top 8.
This was your first top 8?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
Uh,
How did
I
that feel?
I mean, you were talking about this earlier, how the imposter syndrome. That's how I felt Saturday night. Was it didn't hit me until walking to the Four Winds on Sunday morning
Mm,
that
that you were going to play in a top 8?
I was going to play in a top 8 at Worlds. I mean, coming from I put this together for my tournament report, which I'm going to be doing here in a little bit after this. Spoiler alert. But I actually went down and put together my performance at Worlds going into before this year. Outside of outside of 2008, the Minnesota Worlds where Kevin Shannon won. The best I've ever done at Worlds was 4-4 in 2022.
So that's a big leap. What do you attribute that to?
Oof. Honestly, at this point, what don't I attribute it to? Like, the fact that, one, the community has gotten... The fact that the GEMP is there, and it's just so easy to play on GEMP any day I decide to play. The community as a whole has, as everybody has said, has improved. Like, we have so many good players at this point, it's hard not to get a good game of Star Wars in. On top of that, I actually have good players backing me, like, and just helping me out. I talked to you, I talked to Hayes, I know he wants me to say it, but I've talked to Batmouse, like, he's gone on runs, but at the same time, most of his advice is what would Batmouse do, so you gotta, great, take it as you can. But no, I just having the like I said, just everybody Like, it's not just me. Like, I don't think it was just ever just me. The fact that I've actually had a chance now to play more recently versus years ago. So I think that was a big thing.
The more practice.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, on top of that, I mean, this year I decided to play in the Retro League for the first time. So going back and actually playing in those older formats, I think has definitely helped too.
Do you think
I-
were you able to like cross apply things or like work on fundamentals
It's
or
work on
that?
the. I think it's also working on the fundamentals is one thing. On top of that, seeing the game a little slower and a little bit more open, and just seeing the game in a different way. Just because for years I've always thought this is how I should see the game. I mean, I played Magic. I was halfway decent at Magic when I was in Hawaii, and I thought, oh, I could just play Magic and get good at Star Wars. No, you really can't. And just seeing the game at a different way has helped out. I will say this: I think, and you said it. If it was your day, it was your day, and I definitely think Saturday was my day. And you were talking about just looking at your opening hand. There was two games that stuck out particular where if I had two cards in my opening hands that changed the game, the way the game was played.
What
And
what decks did you play?
so I played Rot Small and I played Zero Hour. And the two games that stuck out to me were against Rot's Vader, where they're tracking us in Rebel Barrier in your opening hand when your opponent deploys Vader to the castle and being able to barrier him so he can't move over to the Cloud City site to teleport on your turn to the 3-1 is kind of big. And in both games against Rot Small, I had their tracking us and barrier in opening hand.
Against Russ Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Nice. Yeah, I mean, there's all these little things that are outside your control, and then there's just. But I mean, both of those are very high skill decks.
And you know what? One of the things that really stuck out to me was Friday or Saturday after the event, or it was after the final round, before the top eight was told. You pulled me aside and actually told me that you were like, these are hard decks. Going 6-2 with these decks is amazing, and the fact that you did that, just that 30-second interchange was just, it stuck out. So big thank you, Joe.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is like Zero Hour in particular is like I wouldn't. I guess the word is like it's kind of fragile sometimes. You know, it's like once it gets rolling and you're like, oh, I'm going to subtract 4 from your destiny, you can't clear anything. Like it feels great, but until you get to that point, like it can be disrupted. You could make a mistake. You could get beat down. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. And same with the Rot Small, where I've seen a lot of people. You know, when I pop on Jump and someone's playing and I open the thing and I'm looking at the things they're doing and I'm like, you don't know how to play this deck. And so yeah, I think being able to 6-2 with those two decks, it's not neither of them are autoplay. Neither of them are like, all right, I pull this, I do this, and I can just ignore what you're doing because like I would say the Ticket a Bot Walker's deck I played like 3 years ago. It was like I pull Chain Piet into this, I get the Executor, I play this, he gets this Admiral's Order, which downloads this Walker, and I put the guy on it, and I play Occupation, and like, I don't even need to know what you're doing. I'm just following my script. Like, that's a deck that you get the right matchups, and you just follow the script, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, but Zero Hour and Rot Small are not like that. They're definitely, they have a million different lines and a million choices, and you have to play them up.
And that's one of the things that I think sitting down with Hayes, and I think this was after the Columbus, Ohio event last year, where I took the SSA Mall deck, or the SSA, that deck there, and I think it was that I played against Hayes and ended up beating him, and he even said, like, if you know how to play a deck like this, that has so many lines, It's not an easy deck to play, but I mean, I played with that. I played that deck for a while. 0 Hours, when 0 Hour first came out, before the errata and everything, I was playing that a lot. So, and that's one of the things is I think there's two ways to do it. Where if you play a deck and you know the deck, you should know if you can learn the lines against how to play it against like different types of decks. That's one way to do it, and then or you can do I'm going to play everything and just know how to play everything. Like I would rather be the player who picks a deck, plays those decks, learns how to play against certain decks, and I think that's a little bit easier way to do it.
So, what advice would you give to players who have not made a top 8 and are aspiring to?
There was a point where for years I thought I would never make a top 8. And it was frustrating. I would say just the big thing is don't get frustrated. It's a game. And that's the big thing. Like, if you want to get good, put the practice in, put the time, put the effort in. But don't forget that it is a game and don't not enjoy it. There was a point, I would say, a couple of years ago where I was like, I don't want to play the game anymore. But then I realized I was like, you know what? The community itself is just really great. And just that's what really kept me going was the community. Like, just the amount of people that were happy that I made a top 8. Not that I won or anything. I just made a top 8. Like, I got messages from so many people just saying congrats. And it felt good not to make the top 8, but it felt good that
so many people cared.
Yeah.
Yep, I had that exact same experience the first time when I won the online worlds. So many people like reached out. It was like, and that was like a very low point in my life. Like my now ex-wife, we were going through a divorce. She moved out just a month after that. So it was very rough. And the number of people who messaged me, it was like overwhelming. And so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like, Desai messaged me saying he was proud of me. Johnny Chu emailed me like a couple days later. It was like ecstatic. You, Hayes, everybody who was there, like everybody who just messaged me. Chris Kelly was one of the first people. It was just insane, and that to me was what made everything worth it. Like, I mean, I started playing back in Endor, and I remember my first tournament, how I'm being literally, it was just like, I show up with one light side deck, not even a dark side deck. And to think, like, it's now, years later, it's just like crazy. So, I will say this. I didn't want to win just so I could be like, hey, I'm the first person from Pittsburgh ever to win a world championship. I could be like, hey, Reed, guess what? I got an obelisk too. That's one little goal. I was walking like to the event. I was like, man, I want to win just so I could be like, hey, I got this.
Well,
I mean, come on.
More years to come. You'll get a chance.
We'll see. I you know what? I mean, I honestly, like, I love doing commentary, and I love doing commentary at Worlds, because like, I love doing commentary for the game. It's just so much fun. And like I said to myself, next year, you know, do I want to do commentary? Do I want to play? So we'll see what happens.
Cool.
Yeah.
Someone asked, wait, who's interviewing who? We interviewed
both.
Dan and me, and then we swapped over. I wanted to talk to Dan about his making the top 8, because I think it's a very cool story. I think it's it's awesome. I love to see people who have like played the game so long and worked so hard to sort of have those breakthroughs. And it's you can sometimes it's a total surprise. Sometimes you can kind of see it coming. I think Sam is a good example of one where it was like he started getting better and better and better, and we were all going like any day now he's gonna crush it, and then he started top eighting and top eighting and top eighting consistently, and then he won a major this year at and so sometimes you see it coming, sometimes these breakouts you don't see coming, but I always think it's cool when there's new. It's so hard to top eight in this game with the level of competition. It's always fun when a new person breaks and does that.
Oh yeah, no, like the fact that Sam broke through, won a major this year. Like I was so happy just for Sam. Sam's another one. Sam gave me like one of the best ideas I've ever had for a game, and that's where you take the notebook. I write down like little thoughts, like what I think I did well, what I think I didn't do well. I put it down for a week, and then I went back to it. So that way I can just like look at my notes and everything, just look at the lines.
And review your results basically. Wow. Yeah, so you were putting in work.
Well, I started more with Star Wars Unlimited because I really would like to get good at that game.
Boo.
Oh, boo all you want, but no, I definitely want to get good at Star Wars because again, it's the community, like, and just the fact that I've been playing the game for so long, I've collected the game for so long. It's just those little things about it. And yes, Carl, I gotta the fact that I was able to limited resources, Emil. Yeah, and then get him to sign it because Carl gave me a limited resource was great. I think we both owe a little bit to Carl. Me for the limited resource, you for the full art Yoda's hut.
Yeah.
So,
Carl is the man in terms of helping people out. If you need help, Carl is.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Rogers says, look to the helpers. Carl is a helper. He's just a good guy.
Carl is our Star Wars dead mom. So, well, I think before we let you go, Joe, we got one last thing to do, and that's to test and see how well you know your deck.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a V card. I want you to tell me what the underlying card is.
Oh, boy. Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
The V card is, and this card you played in both your day 1 and your day 2 deck.
You're going to say like Hera or something, huh?
No. It's Aplak.
What is it? It's what?
Aplak.
Interesting.
And you know what? In honor of your 3rd championship, I'll give you 3 guesses.
3 guesses. Is it like a swoop mercenary?
See, you didn't even need 3 guesses.
Nice.
You got it on the first
I almost
try.
said some kind of operative, and then I remembered at the last minute. So the only reason I know that is because I literally just sleeved that up right before Nationals like a month ago because I never put it in a deck. I thought it was like super overrated. I never played it in the year or 2 since it came out, and Phil's always beaten the drum of like Applek's so good. Play double Applek, play 2 Appleks, and so I actually brought 2 copies to Nationals and jumped on board and like. He was absolutely right. Double Applek is really good.
It's not as good as Lando, but it has that little bit of a punch you sometimes need.
Yeah, I mean the only reason it's not as good as Lando is because it's Destiny 3 instead of 5. Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, Dark is so missing in those versatility characters that can go to ground or go to space.
Yeah.
And I love that I can be like Zuckuss and Mist Hunter. Throw Applek on board, and now I'm at least a little bit of a threat in space. Versus the other card we discussed instead of double Applek was double Doctor E, which opens up other beatdown lines, but less space teeth. So, but either or is really good.
Okay, so I think at this point, why don't we let Joe go? Again, you just flew back from Europe. Your arms are tired.
And the Seahawks game is starting.
Yes.
It started 5 minutes ago or something. Go Hawks.
There you go. So until that's all we got for tonight. So again, thank you, congratulations, Joe. It has been a pleasure having you on again. Until next time, everybody, take care, enjoy yourselves, and may the force be with you. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.